I grew up in a modest neighborhood in San Diego, California. The relationship with my parents Harold and Karen started out just fine until things began to change in my late 20s. What I never expected was being kicked out of my family home on a freezing December night with nothing but a backpack and my car keys. The betrayal cut deeper than the winter wind, especially after all I had done to support them through their financial struggles. Before I tell you my story, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like button if you believe family should always put love before money. My childhood home was a simple 3-bedroom ranch-style house in a quiet San Diego suburb. The faded blue exterior and white trim had seen better days, but it was where I learned to ride a bike, where I celebrated birthdays, and where I thought I would always be welcome. Harold, my father, worked as a construction foreman. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with calloused hands and a booming laugh that could fill every corner of our house. Karen, my mother, was a part-time receptionist at a local dental office who prided herself on keeping our home spotless and cooking hearty meals that brought us together at the dinner table every evening. Life felt normal and secure back then. Dad spent weekends teaching me how to change oil and replace spark plugs in our driveway. Mom made her famous pot roast on Sundays and always packed extra cookies in my lunch. I had no reason to think our family was anything but solid. When I was 15, everything shifted. Dad fell from scaffolding at work, severely injuring his back. The accident left him with chronic pain and unable to continue his physically demanding job. The medical bills piled up quickly, and the disability payments barely covered our basic expenses. Mom picked up more hours at the dental office, but it was still a struggle. I started working part-time at a local grocery store to help out. Despite the financial strain, we pulled together as a family. I was proud of how we supported each other through those tough times. When I got accepted to San Diego State University, I decided to live at home to save money and continue helping my parents. I paid for my own education through scholarships, student loans, and my part-time job as a computer lab assistant. After graduating with a degree in computer science, I landed a decent job as a junior programmer at a local tech firm. It made sense to stay at home a little longer to build up my savings and continue supporting my parents. I paid $700 monthly toward household expenses, which was about half of what an apartment would have cost me. I also took care of home repairs that Dad could no longer handle, like fixing the leaking roof and replacing the water heater when it gave out. Around this time, I met Amanda through a mutual friend. She was smart, independent, and worked as an elementary school teacher. With her curly auburn hair and infectious laugh, she quickly became the best part of my daily life. We had been dating for about 10 months when she first suggested I should think about getting my own place. I remember sitting with her at our favorite coffee shop when she brought it up. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, highlighting the concerned expression on her face. Amanda stirred her latte thoughtfully. "Lance, I understand you want to help your parents, but you are 30 now. Have you thought about your own future? What about saving for a down payment on your own house someday?" I nodded, swirling the remaining coffee in my cup. "I know, and I am saving. But my parents still need help with the mortgage and bills. Dad has been talking about some investment opportunity that might finally turn things around for them." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "What kind of investment? He has not shared the details yet," I admitted, "but he seems really excited about it." Looking back, I should have pressed for more information. I should have recognized the subtle changes in my parents' behavior. Mom had started buying new clothes and jewelry items that seemed beyond our budget. Dad disappeared for entire weekends, claiming he was helping friends with projects, but returning home irritable and secretive. The first real warning sign came when I received a promotion and substantial raise at work. Instead of being happy for me, my parents seemed almost resentful. "Well, look at Mr. Silicon Valley over here," Dad remarked with an edge to his voice when I shared the news over dinner. "Making the big bucks while still living under Mommy and Daddy roof." Mom quickly added, "You know, Lance, we love having you here, but sometimes we wonder if we are holding you back. This house is getting crowded with all your computer equipment." I was confused by their reaction. My desk and 2 monitors hardly qualified as crowding the spare bedroom I had been using since childhood. Something had changed, but I could not yet see the full picture of what was happening in my own home. The first major crack in our family foundation appeared on a rainy Tuesday evening. I had come home early from work with a pounding headache and was lying down in my room when I overheard my parents arguing in the kitchen. Their voices carried through the thin walls, and what I heard made my blood run cold. "Harold, we cannot keep doing this. The bank called again today. We are 3 months behind on the mortgage," my mother hissed. "Keep your voice down," my father replied. "Lance might hear you." Maybe he should hear. Maybe he should know that we are about to lose this house because of your gambling. I sat up in bed stunned. Gambling. My father had never mentioned anything about gambling. How long had this been going on? "The real estate agent says we can sell quickly for a good price in this market," my mother continued. "But we need to act fast before foreclosure proceedings start." "And where is Lance supposed to go?" my father asked. There was a long pause before my mother answered. "He is a grown man with a good job. He will figure it out." The cold calculation in her voice felt like a physical blow. I had been contributing to this household for years, helping them stay afloat, and now they were planning to sell the house without even discussing it with me. The next morning, I confronted them at breakfast. Their expressions of surprise quickly turned defensive. "You were eavesdropping on a private conversation," my father accused, his face flushing. "I was in my room and overheard you," I explained calmly. "Dad, do you have a gambling problem? Is that why we are having money troubles?" "This is not your concern," he snapped. "This is adult business." I could hardly believe my ears. Adult business. I am 30 years old. I have been helping pay the bills for years. How is this not my concern? My mother stepped in, her voice artificially soothing. "Lance, honey, your father has made some investment mistakes. But we are handling it. The house needs too many repairs anyway. It makes sense to downsize now." "Investment mistakes," I repeated slowly. "You mean gambling losses." "Do not judge what you do not understand," my father growled, slamming his coffee mug down so hard that brown liquid sloshed onto the tablecloth. "I have been trying to dig us out of debt the only way I know how. By digging the hole deeper," I asked incredulously. "Let me help. I can increase what I contribute each month. We can make a budget, talk to financial counselors." My mother laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Oh, now the college boy is going to lecture us on finances. How cute." Their dismissive attitude hurt, but I persisted. "At least tell me how bad things are." "How much do you owe?" "None of your damn business," my father said, standing up abruptly. "This conversation is over." From that day forward, the atmosphere in the house became increasingly hostile. My belongings started disappearing or getting broken. My favorite coffee mug suddenly had a crack. My external hard drive containing important work files went missing for 3 days before reappearing in the garage. When I asked about these incidents, my parents feigned innocence or blamed me for being disorganized. They began criticizing everything about me, from the hours I kept to the food I ate. "Your computer light keeps me up all night," my mother would complain, though. My bedroom was on the opposite end of the house from theirs. "You are eating us out of house and home," my father would grumble, despite the fact that I bought most of the groceries. The situation was taking a toll on my relationship with Amanda. We had planned a weekend getaway to celebrate our 1-year anniversary, but I canceled at the last minute when my father claimed to need my help with urgent plumbing repairs. When I got home, I found him watching baseball with a beer in hand, no plumbing tools in sight. Amanda was understandably upset. "Lance, they are manipulating you," she said during our phone call that night. "This is not normal or healthy." "They are my parents," I replied weakly. "They need me right now." "And what about what you need? What about us?" Her voice cracked slightly. I had no good answer for her. The final blow came without warning. After a long day at work, I returned home to find my belongings piled haphazardly on the front porch. Clothes, books, electronics, all thrown together in a jumbled mess. Some items were getting wet from the lawn sprinklers. When I tried my key in the door, it no longer worked. Through the front window, I could see my father sitting in his recliner, deliberately ignoring me. I pounded on the door until he finally answered, standing in the doorway with his arms crossed. "What is going on?" I demanded. "Why are my things outside? Why did you change the locks?" "We sold the house," he announced flatly. "New owners take possession in 48 hours. You need to be gone by then." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. You sold it. Without telling me. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem, he replied coldly. You have a job. Figure it out like the rest of us have to. I could see my mother hovering in the background, not meeting my eyes. Mom, I called out. Are you really okay with this? She stepped forward reluctantly. Lance, we need space for our new life. You will be fine. You are young and successful. My new life felt like a slap in the face after everything I had done to support them. I had paid thousands of dollars toward their mortgage over the years, money that could have gone toward my own home. Can I at least come in and properly pack my things? I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. You have until tomorrow morning, my father said, before closing the door in my face. That night I slept in my car, parked down the street from the only home I had ever known, rain drumming on the roof, wondering how my own parents could betray me so completely. The next morning, I showed up at Amanda's apartment unannounced, soaking wet, and emotionally exhausted. When she opened the door, the shock on her face quickly transformed into concern. Lance, what happened to you? I stood there, water dripping from my clothes onto her welcome mat, unable to form words for a moment. Finally, I managed to say, they kicked me out. My parents sold the house and changed the locks. Amanda pulled me inside without hesitation. She helped me out of my wet jacket and sat me down on her couch, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. Tell me everything, she said, and I did. I told her about the confrontation, about my belongings piled on the porch, about sleeping in my car. As I spoke, the full weight of what had happened began to sink in, and to my embarrassment, I broke down in tears. Amanda held me without judgment. When I finally composed myself, she said something that surprised me. Move in with me. I looked up at her, certain I had misheard. What, move in with me? She repeated firmly. Not just temporarily. For real. We have been talking about taking the next step in our relationship anyway. The offer was tempting, but I hesitated. Are you sure? This is not how I imagined this happening. She squeezed my hand. Life rarely happens the way we imagine. But I love you, and I want to help. Plus, my apartment is big enough for two, and splitting the rent would help us both save money. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt a glimmer of hope. Amanda and I spent the day retrieving the rest of my belongings from my parents' house and setting up a corner of her apartment as my workspace. A week into my new living arrangement, I ran into Thomas, an old college friend, at a local coffee shop. Thomas had gone into real estate after graduation and had built a successful career selling properties around San Diego. Lance, good to see you, man, he greeted me warmly. How is life treating you? I gave him an abbreviated version of recent events, mentioning that my parents had suddenly sold our family home. Thomas frowned. That is strange. What neighborhood was it in? When I told him the address, his expression changed to one of concern. Lance, that house has not sold. It is currently in pre-foreclosure. The bank is about to seize it for non-payment. The coffee I had been drinking suddenly tasted bitter. What? That cannot be right. My parents told me they sold it. Unless it was a private sale in the last couple of days that has not hit the records yet, that house is definitely heading for auction, Thomas insisted. I just saw the listing in the foreclosure notices yesterday. My mind was reeling. If the house had not been sold, why would my parents lie? Why kick me out? Thomas offered to look into the situation more deeply, and I gratefully accepted. 2 days later, he called me with disturbing news. Lance, I did some digging. Your parents have refinanced that house 3 times in the past 5 years. They have pulled out nearly all the equity. Based on the timing, it looks like they have been using the money to pay off other debts. What kind of debts? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. I cannot say for certain, but I have a contact at the bank who hinted that your father has been taking out personal loans as well. Multiple loans from different lenders. It is a classic pattern for someone with a gambling addiction. The pieces were finally falling into place. The mysterious weekends away, the sudden, inexplicable purchases followed by periods of extreme frugality, the defensiveness whenever money was discussed. There is more, Thomas continued reluctantly. Your parents have been telling people in the neighborhood that you abandoned them financially. Mrs. Peterson next door said your mom told her you refused to help with bills despite making, and I quote, 6 figures in the tech industry. The injustice of it burned in my chest. I had never made anywhere near 6 figures, and I had faithfully contributed to household expenses every month. Now, they were not only evicting me, but smearing my reputation as well. I decided to confront them one last time. I drove to the house after work, steeling myself for another difficult conversation. When I knocked, my mother answered, her expression hardening when she saw me. "Lance, we told you not to come back. Is Dad home? We need to talk. All of us." She reluctantly let me in. My father was sitting at the kitchen table looking haggard. "The house is not sold," I stated flatly. "It is in foreclosure." My father jumped up, his face contorted with anger. "Who told you that? Have you been checking up on us? Does it matter? You lied to me. You kicked me out of my home based on a lie." "It is our home," my mother corrected. "And we did what we had to do." "To cover up gambling debts?" I asked, looking directly at my father. His face flushed deep red. "You do not know what you are talking about." "I know enough," I countered. "I know you have remortgaged this house multiple times. I know you have been taking out personal loans. I know you have been telling neighbors that I abandoned you financially when the truth is I have been helping you for years." "Get out," my father growled. "You are no son of mine coming in here making accusations." "I am just stating facts," I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Facts you have been hiding from me while using my financial contributions to fuel your gambling addiction." My mother stepped between us. "We do not need your judgment, Lance. We have a plan to sell the house before foreclosure. We will have enough money to start fresh somewhere else." "Start fresh with what? More lies, more gambling. That is enough," my father shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "Get out of my house before I throw you out." I looked at them, both these strangers wearing my parents' faces. "You already threw me out. Remember, I just came for the truth. I guess I got it." As I turned to leave, my mother called after me, her voice suddenly less certain. "Lance, you do not understand. Your father has been under so much pressure." I paused at the door. "I understand perfectly. You chose his addiction over your son." Walking back to my car, I felt numb. The family I thought I had was gone, if it had ever existed at all. But as I drove back to Amanda's apartment, a new resolve began to form in my mind. Thomas' words echoed in my thoughts. "The house is heading for auction." That evening I called Thomas. "The house that is going into foreclosure. What happens next?" "It will go to a bank auction, probably within 60 days, he explained. "Why do you ask? What would it take for me to buy it?" There was a pause on the line. "You want to buy your parents' house? Are you serious?" "Completely serious. They betrayed me and lied to me. Now I want the house that I helped pay for all these years." Thomas whistled. "That is some revenge plan. But it could work. You have a steady income, good credit from what you have told me. The auction price will probably be well below market value because of the outstanding debts against it." "Then let us do it," I said decisively. "Help me buy my childhood home." Over the next several weeks, Thomas helped me prepare for the auction. I liquidated my investment account, took out a personal loan, and secured pre-approval for a mortgage. Thomas created a limited liability company to make the purchase, ensuring my name would not appear on any public documents. The day of the auction arrived with clear skies, and my stomach in knots. Amanda came with me for moral support, squeezing my hand as we entered the county courthouse. About 20 people had gathered for the foreclosure auction, most of them professional investors looking for properties to flip. When the auctioneer announced my childhood address, I felt a strange detachment, as if I were watching a movie about someone else's life. The bidding started at the amount owed to the bank, which was considerably less than the property value due to the local real estate market. 3 investors jumped in immediately. I waited, letting them drive up the price incrementally before making my first bid. Thomas had coached me on this strategy, advising me not to show my hand too early. For 15 tense minutes, I went back and forth with one persistent investor, a middle-aged woman in a sharp business suit who clearly wanted the property badly. My heart pounded as I reached the absolute maximum I could afford to pay. Going once, going twice, the auctioneer called, and I held my breath. "Sold to Valley View Properties, LLC." Amanda hugged me tightly. You did it. You actually did it. I had indeed done it. Through the company Thomas had set up, I was now the legal owner of the house I grew up in, the house my parents had thrown me out of. The irony was not lost on me. The next part of the plan required patience. Thomas handled all the paperwork and communications as the representative of Valley View Properties. 3 days after the auction, he informed me that my parents had contacted the company requesting to rent the house they had just lost. They claimed they had a verbal agreement with the previous owner to stay on as renters, Thomas told me, barely suppressing a smile. Of course, there was no previous owner besides the bank, and no such agreement exists. What did you tell them? I asked. I said Valley View would consider allowing them to rent pending a credit and background check. I also mentioned that due to the condition of the property and the current market, the monthly rent would be $3,000. I almost choked. $3,000. The mortgage payment was only about $1,100. Thomas shrugged. Market rate for that neighborhood is around $1,700. I tripled it to see if they would balk. But surprisingly, they agreed. Your father claimed he has a new job opportunity that will allow them to afford it. I felt a mix of satisfaction and unease. Part of me wanted them to feel the financial pressure they had put me under for years. Another part wondered if I was becoming as callous as they had been. Will they pass the credit check? I asked. Not a chance, Thomas replied. But I will tell them we are making an exception based on their long history with the property. Meanwhile, I have installed security cameras at the house for the new owner, so you can keep an eye on things. For the next 3 months, I watched through the security feed as my parents struggled to make the inflated rent payments. They were always late, always with a different excuse, but they managed to scrape together the money somehow. I saw my father leaving the house at odd hours, returning, looking defeated. I saw my mother crying at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills. It gave me no pleasure to see their suffering. In fact, it made me question what I was doing. Was this justice or just petty revenge? Amanda sensed my conflict. You do not have to continue this, you know. You have made your point. Have I? I wondered aloud. They still do not even know it is me. Maybe it is time they did, she suggested gently. I knew she was right. This situation could not continue indefinitely. I had purchased the house partly out of a desire for justice and partly because, despite everything, it was still home to me. Now, I needed to decide what to do with it, and with my relationship with my parents. I arranged for Thomas to set up a meeting with my parents, ostensibly to discuss their repeatedly late rent payments. We agreed to meet at the house on a Saturday morning. When I walked in the front door, instead of Thomas, my parents' faces registered pure shock. Lance, what are you doing here? My mother asked, confused. We are waiting for the property manager. You are looking at him, I replied quietly. Or rather, you are looking at the owner. My father stood up so quickly that his chair toppled backward. What the hell are you talking about? Valley View Properties is my company, I explained. I bought this house at the foreclosure auction. I am your landlord. The color drained from my mother's face as she sank back into her chair. My father, on the other hand, turned bright red with fury. This is some kind of sick joke, he sputtered. No joke, I assured him, pulling out the property deed and placing it on the table. I own this house now. The house I helped pay for while you were gambling away the equity. The house you kicked me out of with nowhere to go. My mother began to cry soft, hiccuping sobs that made her shoulders shake. Why would you do this to us? Why would I do this to you? I repeated incredulously. After what you did to me, after the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal, we were desperate, she whispered. So was I. When you threw me out, I shot back. I slept in my car, Mom. In the rain. After years of helping you, of paying bills, of fixing this place up. And you repaid me by changing the locks and piling my belongings on the porch. My father had gone very still, a vein pulsing in his temple. So this is your revenge, charging us 3 times the normal rent until we are broke, then throwing us out too. I took a deep breath, centering myself. Actually, no. That is not why I am here today. I placed a folder on the table next to the deed. This contains 2 things. First, a report from a gambling addiction specialist I consulted about your situation. Second, information about a treatment program that has agreed to take you, Dad, if you are willing to acknowledge you have a problem. Both my parents stared at the folder, as if it might bite them. I do not have a gambling problem, my father muttered, but there was less conviction in his voice than before. The second mortgage, the personal loans, the foreclosure, and the lies all suggest otherwise, I countered. And I suspect, if we look deeper, we would find even more evidence. My mother reached for the folder with trembling hands. "What are you saying, Lance?" "I am saying I will reduce your rent to a reasonable amount, and I will not evict you on one condition. Dad gets help for his gambling addiction, and you both agree to family counseling with me." My father scoffed. "Or what, you will throw us out on the street like we did to you, make us sleep in our car?" I looked him directly in the eyes. "No, I would never do that because that would make me like you. And despite everything, I still want to be better than that." That conversation took place 18 months ago. The road since then has not been easy, but it has been necessary. Dad initially refused treatment, insisting he could stop gambling on his own. When that predictably failed and I discovered he had taken out yet another loan, I had to stand firm on my conditions. He finally agreed to enter a 30-day residential program, followed by ongoing outpatient treatment and Gamblers Anonymous meetings. Mom joined a support group for families of gambling addicts and began to understand her role in enabling his behavior. Our family counseling sessions were tense and painful at first, with years of resentment and deception to work through. I continued living with Amanda, our relationship growing stronger through all of this. 6 months ago, I proposed, and we are planning a small wedding next spring. We have discussed what to do about the house long term, and we have decided to eventually sell it and use the proceeds to help both our families and start our own life together. As for my parents, they are slowly rebuilding their financial stability. I restructured their rent to be affordable on their actual income, and much of what they pay goes into an escrow account I set up to help them pay off their remaining debts. Dad found work as a bookkeeper, ironically, helping other people manage their money, and he has maintained his sobriety from gambling one day at a time. Our relationship remains fragile, built on cautious trust rather than blind faith. I have learned that family is not an unconditional bond, but a relationship that requires honesty, respect, and boundaries to thrive. My parents have learned, I hope, that running from problems only makes them worse, and that secrets between family members are like poison, slowly killing connection from within. The house that was once a battleground between us is now neutral territory, a place where we can meet as adults and work on healing old wounds. It is no longer a symbol of betrayal, but a reminder that sometimes we have to lose what we thought was important to find what truly matters. If you have ever faced betrayal from those who should have protected you, I hope my story reminds you that healing is possible even when the path forward seems impossible to find. Sometimes the greatest act of love is setting boundaries that force those we care about to confront their own destructive behaviors. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between enabling someone you love and helping them face reality? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of family challenges and personal growth. Thank you for listening, and remember that home is not always about the structure we live in, but the honest relationships we build with others and ourselves.